Now that we know how to properly document our construction project, let's take a look at construction quality assurance and construction inspection items.
Aristotle once said, "Quality is not an act, it is a habit." For the Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA, construction quality assurance, which is often simply called QA, is not a slogan. Rather, it is a systematic approach to ensure the constructed quality of each federal aid project is what it should be. It's making sure the public gets what it paid for. In doing so, it's important to know the principles of QA and its requirements for federal aid construction contracts and how a local public agency, or LPA, can comply with these requirements. QA for highway construction is built on key principles that have been developed and accepted nationally by the FHWA, the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, or AASHTO, and construction industry organizations.
QA is a broad umbrella term covering the shared responsibilities of both the contractor and the agency for achieving a project's contracted level of quality. Under the umbrella, the basic categories of responsibilities are quality control, or QC, activities performed by the contractor, and acceptance activities performed by the local public agency. The contractor's QC function requires ongoing monitoring and measurement to continually adjust and control the quality. This is accomplished through QC inspection, sampling, and testing at both materials production facilities and at the project site. The agency's acceptance function means taking responsibility for verifying and accepting the quality of materials and construction workmanship. Complete QA implementation requires three major components, which can be illustrated as tiers within a pyramid diagram to show how these components build upon each other. First and foundational is joint agency and industry support. This means commitment, communication, training, and funding by both contractors and agencies to ensure that sufficient resources, including personnel and equipment, are in place to perform the required quality functions. These ongoing support activities are needed so that QA principles are mutually understood and correctly applied. LPAs and their consultants should be aware of existing resources, such as QA training available through their state DOT and other organizations. The second tier of the pyramid is a formal QA program developed and documented by the agency. The QA program outlines overall requirements for all projects. A well-developed program outlines the proper agency and contractor roles and responsibilities. Each state Department of Transportation, or DOT, must have a QA program approved by FHWA, and we would encourage LPAs to use these for your projects. A complete QA program includes the 6 core elements of contractor quality control, agency acceptance, independent assurance, dispute resolution, laboratory accreditation, qualification, and personnel qualification certification. Specific requirements for each element are provided in FHWA's regulations and related FHWA and AASHTO guidance documents. Let's go over the QA program requirement based on road designation for federal aid projects. For projects on the National Highway System, or NHS, the LPA must have an FHWA-approved QA program that addresses the 6 core elements. The NHS includes the interstate highway system and other major roads designated by each state. In this case, an LPA may either adopt the state DOT's approved program requirements or develop an LPA QA program that complies with FHWA requirements and is approved by the state DOT and FHWA. For projects not on the NHS, FHWA does not have specific QA program requirements. However, LPAs are responsible to ensure that each federal aid project receives adequate supervision and inspection. With this in mind, LPAs should have a program that is acceptable to the state DOT, and that includes the 6 core elements. Several state DOTs have developed special QA programs for use on LPA projects. We recommend that an LPA identify the acceptance activities to be performed by the agency or by its consultant as a key part of any QA program. In addition, FHWA highly recommends your program identify the minimum requirements for a contractor's QC system to ensure real-time inspection that will head off quality issues. The third tier of the pyramid is quality assurance specifications. These provide project-specific instructions for implementing the QA program which will be included in the contract. These specifications include contractor QC requirements, such as minimum inspection and testing activity, the agency acceptance criteria, including the items to be inspected, materials to be tested, and quality standards that will be applied, how to make payments that are based on the measured construction quality, including any incentives and disincentives.
Let's summarize and review what we have covered. Construction quality assurance, or QA, is built on key principles accepted nationally. QA is an umbrella term covering both quality control activities by the contractor and agency acceptance activities. Successful QA implementation has 3 major components that build upon one another, like the tiers of a pyramid. They are joint agency and industry support, a QA program, and QA specifications. For National Highway System projects, LPAs may either adopt the state DOT's approved QA program or develop an LPA QA program that meets FHWA requirements. For all other federal aid projects, FHWA does not prescribe specific QA program requirements. However, the LPA should have a QA program that is acceptable to the state DOT. QA specifications are included in the contract to implement the QA program. If you'd like to know more about the federal aid requirements for construction quality assurance, please refer to the FHWA website. You should always check with your state DOT or FHWA division office for specific policies and procedures in your state.
During the construction of your project, you'll need to complete a couple of different types of labor interviews. One of them is a DBE cuff review. When a disadvantaged business enterprise or DBE company is working on your project, a commercially useful function or cuff review needs to be completed. DBE companies are certified to be able to perform specific types of work. This review simply documents that the DBE company is actually performing the work they were contracted to do. Nothing more, less, or different. If change orders affect the amount of DBE work to be completed and substitute work needs to be established for the prime contractor to meet the goal, then approval must be given by MoDOT External Civil Rights to add or change the items of work a DBE is performing. Labor interviews will also be conducted on the employees of the prime contractor. One time every 2 weeks, an employee needs to be selected for a wage rate interview. Every employee should be interviewed at least one time during the project. So now let's talk a little bit about materials. Materials testing must be performed by a MoDOT certified tester and must be performed by an independent representative of the LPA and paid for by the LPA. The contractor cannot perform quality assurance testing or be responsible for paying for it. If your inspectors or testing lab need to become MoDOT certified, they should see the training section of our LPA website for information on how to get certified. If materials arrive on the project that require any kind of certification from the supplier, do not let them unload it off the truck unless you have the certification in hand. Here's an example of what could happen if you do. So let's say your project is a bridge replacement, and bridge girders finally arrive on the job. Unfortunately, the supplier did not include the Buy America mill certification form, but you've been waiting for them for a long time and you need to get them installed ASAP. Here's what may happen if you allow them to be unloaded and you even pay for the items. The supplier has everything they need from you. It's going to be an absolute pain to get them to get you the mill certification. After confirmation that you will be getting the mill cert, you allow the girders to be installed, then the bridge crew gets the deck poured. Weeks go by and still you don't have the mill certs for the steel. You make the phone call to the supplier and you finally get the news. The supplier cannot provide the mill certs because they were misplaced or lost. Either you have to tear the bridge deck off and remove the girders from the project, or you will be forfeiting every penny of federal funds on the job. You cannot just make the steel item non-participating, so don't take the risk. It's not worth it. Get your certifications before you accept the material. If they don't have it on the delivery, send it back. And don't forget to document in the diaries where the certifications, concrete tickets, asphalt tickets, cup reviews, and wage rate interviews can be found in your documentation. Mill certs are the actual test results that are performed when the steel is made. Steel mills are required to provide those mill certs to their customers when they sell the steel. The required specific terminology you're looking for is melted and manufactured in the United States. To further illustrate this point, let's watch a short video on Buy America.
When construction has begun on your federal aid project, it is critical to ensure the contractor complies with the Buy America contract provisions. All steel and iron products permanently incorporated into your project must be domestically produced and have appropriate certification statements provided by the contractor. Domestically produced means that manufacturing the fabrication of steel or iron products and the application of coatings are performed within the United States or its territories. Products used temporarily during the construction are not subject to this requirement. Manufacturing or fabrication performed outside of the U.S. on a domestic iron or steel product makes the entire product a foreign source material that does not conform to the Buy America provisions. For example, 100 pieces of steel guardrail that are rolled to shape in Detroit and then hot dip galvanized in the Canadian city of Toronto does not constitute conformance with the Buy America requirements. Such products should not be installed on a federal aid project. As the local public agency or LPA, you must confirm that all steel and iron products meet the Buy America requirements before the contractor installs the products into your federal aid highway project. Contractors must provide a signed certification statement regarding the manufacture of the iron and steel products to meet Buy America requirements. Although there is no standard format, the intent of requiring a Buy America certification statement is to make the contractor liable for meeting contract requirements for steel or iron materials installed. As such, having traceable records for the products installed is a critical component of any Buy America certification. The FHWA endorses a concept called STEP certification to meet the Buy America requirements. This type of certification creates a paper trail that documents the location of each manufacturing step for every piece of steel or iron material used on a project. For instance, in the case of a shipment of reinforcing steel, each bundle of steel that is delivered is accompanied by a series of certification statements, including a description that identifies the location of the rebar manufacturing plant and a separate statement that addresses where the rebar is cut to length and bent to final dimensions. A third certification may be needed if an epoxy coating has been applied to the reinforcing steel. The company responsible for each separate process that changes a steel or iron product, not the contractor who installs the product, certifies that each step was completed domestically. There are many ways to prepare acceptable certification statements. The prime contractor may certify all materials for the entire project at once, or suppliers can certify each individual step or separate production process. A variation that uses elements of the two extremes is commonly used. The most common method of tracing steel or iron material is by the heat number. A heat number is an identification stamped on a steel piece or iron casting at the production location. It identifies a specific amount of material produced and the associated quality testing performed. Every certification should clearly reference the heat number. When reviewing certifications, compare the heat numbers or other tracing methods on delivered material to the certification document to ensure that the information is the same. One piece of documentation you should expect to receive for all steel and iron is the mill certification. The steel producer prepares the mill certification to prove that the raw steel or iron was smelted and formed in the United States. The certification can be a signed letter or a signed statement included on delivery tickets. Fabricated structural steel shapes must have a certification statement showing the location of the fabrication plant and information about the originating mill work. Fabrication includes cutting, welding, and even drilling holes. Bolts, nuts, and washers used as connectors require separate certification statements since these are produced at different locations and use different manufacturing methods than the structural elements. The location of the final step, where a product was coated with paint or galvanized, must also conform to the Buy America provisions. However, Buy America material requirements do not apply to the coating material because it is neither steel nor iron. Verify certification statements at the time of material delivery to the project site. Certification statements are usually printed directly on the shipment bill of lading and must be signed. Documentation supporting the certification statements should include enough detail to trace the steel or iron from the mill producing the raw materials through all manufacturing processes and coating activities. The Buy America provisions specifically address pre-assembled manufactured products that contain steel or iron components. Your contractor should identify steel or iron components of any pre-assembled manufactured product. When this is the case, the company who completed the assembly should provide the appropriate certification statement of conformance with the Buy America regulation. You need to track the value of those components in contract administration records if certification statements are not provided, to avoid exceeding the minimum use threshold. Steel or iron products without certification statements confirming domestic manufacturing are non-conforming to the Buy America requirements. Obvious evidence of foreign manufacturing might include foreign language script on products and foreign country names stamped on an item or on invoices. Non-conforming materials also include items with improper or incomplete certification statements. Confirm that the cumulative value of non-conforming material does not exceed 0.1% of the total contract amount, or $2,500, whichever is greater. If this cumulative value exceeds the minimum threshold limit, then additional installed material must be of domestic origin. Many state departments of transportation, or DOTs, have developed required certification processes for use on federal aid projects in their state. So check with your state DOT for guidance in administering the certification process on your project. Your responsibility is to ensure the steel or iron is certified to meet Buy America contract provisions.